everybody. Welcome to another one of these shorts this week from us here at the MMA Outsiders. I'm Tom Albano, that's Zain Bando. And Zan, just the other day we talked about Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic for UFC 309. And now UFC 309 also has a co-main event, and at the same time, the Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler saga has finally come to an end. We think. I was talking about this with Anthony Ballister, one of our contributors, on Friday night when the news broke. Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler is going to be the co-main event for UFC 309, a rematch of their lightweight championship fight from UFC 262, in which Chandler nearly finished Oliveira before Oliveira came back and finished Chandler in the second. And so Conor McGregor once again is on the outs of the UFC. So Zan, Anthony and I gave our real-time reactions as we were talking about this as everything was developing on Friday night, live on the air. So it only feels right to start with your thoughts about all of this.
Well, first off, you were the one that broke the news to me. Thank you for that. I was doing a few other things, and I opened my phone, and the first thing I saw was Conor Chandler off. I'm like, wait, what? I was so confused. So, wait, we're back to square one all over again.
There is a little bit of a clarification on it. It's not exactly off. It's off as the next fight, but Chandler and the UFC have both teased that if, after this, maybe we can renegotiate for McGregor Chandler again.
Yeah, I did remember the clarification, but I was just saying my initial reaction was, oh no, we're back at square one all over again. Okay, and then I saw the follow-up that Chandler was fighting Oliveira. I'm like, oh, that's actually interesting. But yeah, so my initial reaction to this is a perfect fight for Charles Oliveira, just considering that he just lost to Arman Tsarukyan and he was promised a rematch with Islam Makhachev, which he never got. So this is a huge fight where it's almost a must-win, winning you're in scenario for Charles Oliveira, because he'll more than likely fight the winner of Tsarukyan and Makhachev next. So to me, all the pressure, on my opinion, is on Oliveira, and it seems like to me Chandler has nothing to lose, considering that he sat out to try to get as much money as he could for this Conor fight. This Conor fight's not happening. So now, in my opinion, Chandler is the one that has nothing to lose. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, honestly, I could see that, because with a loss, I mean, Zan, how many times do we talk about Conor McGregor having not had a meaningful win in the UFC since his lightweight title in November of 2016? Right. Are we up to 11 billion times we've talked about that?
Yeah, and I think it's reiterated in every single article on every single MMA outlet about Conor McGregor, because there's nothing else to say about it, because he doesn't do anything. That's why.
Right.
So you have to go back and reference things that happened 8 years ago, because that's all you have to go off. So
for sure. And the other thing is that if somehow Michael Chandler wins, and while it seems a little far-fetched because it's been a while since Chandler has fought, it's going to be 2 years nearly to the date that he last fought, when he fought Dustin Poirier at the Garden. Like I mentioned, Michael Chandler nearly got a knockout in the first round of that fight with Charles Oliveira. Had he had a little more time in that opening round, he might have gotten the finish and might have won the UFC lightweight championship. And if Michael Chandler defeats Charles Oliveira in this fight, especially if it comes via a finish, then all of a sudden Michael Chandler has now opened up the door, and he's a top contender at lightweight all of a sudden. So at that point, maybe you go for the championship instead of the Conor fight. So there's a lot at this point. Michael Chandler has not much to lose, a lot to gain. Charles Oliveira, if he loses, that would mark 3 straight losses, and that just would not look really good, especially when you have, the opportunity that after this whole Islam mess plays itself out, given what could happen next with Arman Tsarukyan, be it he ends up fighting Islam for the championship in early 2025, which I think happens, or some sort of interim title fight with Dan Hooker at the end of this year. If Oliveira needs to win this fight to stay in basically the upper echelon of the lightweight title scene.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I'm gonna have to disagree with you on Chandler potentially getting a title shot with a win because you have to remember he's 2-3 in the
Oh no, not
UFC.
with an immediate, not an immediate title shot off of a win. Could I
Okay,
see it
okay.
happening? Could I see it happening because Dana White is absolutely that crazy? Of course, especially for considering how long Chandler had to wait for Conor McGregor. At the same time, if he wins this fight, I mean, you look at some potential names that could be next. Say an Arman if he loses to Islam or a Dan Hooker. Like Chandler now at that point is going to be in prime position.
See, if I'm Chandler, you beat Oliveira and then you try to cut another McGregor promo and see what the heck happens. That's that's what I think you do. You got to do. You got to keep pushing it until it officially dies. I don't think it's officially dead yet. Is it certainly on its deathbed stage? Yeah, 100%.
Well, let's talk about that. What is next for Conor McGregor? So Conor was asked about it at a BKFC press event and basically said he had been basically out of the loop. Uh, I think, Zan, what this all means is that, we talked about it as a possibility earlier in the year. Uh, the reason for this fight being held up is not because of a foot injury. It is because that there is yet another contract issue between Conor McGregor and the UFC that at this point, I think we, Zan, as MMA fans, or specifically us as MMA media, are just absolutely used to because this is not the first time that it's happened that there's been some sort of controversy. And we've seen, Zan, Conor McGregor retire from the sport multiple times because of contractual issues with the UFC. And at this point, it's just we're just no stranger to it. Um,
No, we're
I
not. I
said it.
mean, think about it. He was pulled from UFC 200. He didn't fight on UFC 300. He was going to fight on UFC 303, even though Dana said pretty much the whole time that he didn't think he was going to fight. He didn't fight He didn't fight anyway. And now the new narrative is, oh, he's going to come back in early 2025, and I know more than you guys do. I don't disagree with the fact that he probably does know more than we do, considering he is the president of the sitting company, of course. But if the narrative keeps changing every couple of months, and the timing of that narrative comes up, and the narrative doesn't change, and then the narrative changes again, like what are we doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, we are. I mean, we are, San, and I hate to be funny like this and use the name of a show here at the network, but we are essentially moving the goalposts here. We're for this Conor McGregor fight, and honestly, Zan, I don't know. And I mentioned this to Anthony on Friday. I don't know if this fight actually happens at this point. I was obviously doubtful. I always had said to you, I'll believe it when they're in the octagon. But I genuinely feel, and I said this speaking to Anthony, that there is a better opportunity at this point that Conor McGregor, mind you, he is part owner of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships. There's a better chance that he fights Mike Perry in BKFC than he ever does in the UFC octagon again. Now, this is where I think the problem is coming in because Conor McGregor, and we've kind of talked about this earlier this year, talked about it last year with Tough 31. Conor McGregor, it seems like he wants to fight out his UFC contract and then just be done with the UFC and do whatever endeavor he has left because obviously he has plenty of endeavors outside the UFC. He has ever since his hiatus from the UFC the first time around. And obviously the UFC don't want that. The UFC wants to keep a hold of McGregor, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to sign him to a new contract, and just so that way, if he retires, then the UFC has to have approval. Remember, Masvidal only was allowed to fight Nate Diaz in boxing because he got the UFC's approval. And I'm sure if the UFC saw, oh, BKFC fight versus Mike Perry, yeah, no, you're not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. I just think, I don't know. I just think to end this whole circus, I mean, I don't know. I think at this point, if you're the UFC and they claimed in the Fight Inc. documentary that they don't root for certain fighters, I semi don't believe that. But
No.
um, oh, but if we're gonna go based off that, and we're gonna go based off the fact that I don't believe them, they are hoping and praying that Michael Chandler wins, because if Michael Chandler wins, they can go back to the negotiating table and pull their so-called BS. If Chandler loses, it's almost like, okay, we don't have to deal with him anymore, but we still do, because he's still going to come after us for whatever, meaning McGregor, because then McGregor's going to try to push, oh, I can still fight at 170 and I can beat Charles Oliveira, which is the same thing that he said 3 years ago in the fight in the fight never happened.
I can beat Charles Oliveira. I can beat the recent former UFC lightweight champion when I haven't had a meaningful win since 2016. I haven't been the same since Khabib Nurmagomedov basically ended my career in the octagon at UFC 229. he is so full of shit sometimes. It's not even funny.
He really is. So I guess with this news, I know I like to do this every week, but I have to pull it out again. What is your optimism meter that Conor McGregor ever fights in mixed martial arts ever again? Will it ever happen? You don't think so?
No. I said I was done with this fight, and now I'm done with Conor McGregor at this point. I don't care enough anymore.
Well, yeah, that's what that one tweet said, where it was like, this is what happens when you waste 3 years of your life, and it's a picture of Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler.
Well, Tough 31 was basically a waste for us. And
Tom, this whole thing has been a waste since January of last year, which is when the thing was announced.
Yep. This has been a real just freaking
brutal
waste
18
of time.
months. Brutal 18 months.
Yeah, and I don't care. I mean, Conor McGregor could never fight again, and I just won't care. That being said, if the UFC ever likes to, oh, we can create another star like a Conor McGregor, like the recent talk with Sean O'Malley and stuff. Yeah, no. Because the UFC is not going to want to create a monster, a Frankenstein, if you will, like they did with Conor McGregor, where he goes out of control and eventually surpasses the star power, of the UFC itself.
Well, the thing is I think the UFC has stars currently, but they don't have anybody that can do what McGregor did. That's
Correct.
The issue.
Correct.
Unless they keep shooting Alex Pereira to the, unless they keep the Alex Pereira rocket ship going for as long as they possibly can.
Which I have no problem with. I'll ride the Shama train all day long.
Well, yeah, but you better believe if he somehow gets upset in a couple weeks, the whole rocket ship is going to come crashing down.
Oh, that would just be typical second half UFC 2024 if that happens.
Oh, of course.
This year has not gone the UFC's way.
I don't think so either. Even though they claim, "Whoa, it's our biggest year of all time."
I mean, it might be financially. I mean, UFC 300 was fantastic. It was an all-timer. But at the same time, the UFC, I bet, had all these plans that they wanted for certain fighters and certain events. And no, just never ended up working out.
Yeah, Spain didn't happen. South Africa didn't happen this year. The Dublin, Ireland press conference didn't happen.
England sucked. Dana White admitted basically that as good as the Sphere was, that the main event and co-main event for that sucked. This has just been one thing after another.
But I'm not going to go out and say that the Sphere was a total flop. But
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's just problematic when the head of the company is basically saying, well, I hope people tuned out before the co-main event and main event.
Well, yeah, given that he just said that, I think we're going to be in for a very nerve-wracking second half of the year if some of these main events don't happen when they're supposed to. So, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
my early pick, I meant to give this to you. I think Charles Oliveira beats Michael Chandler again. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna say probably my way too early prediction is same as the first fight ends up. I think Oliveira finishes Chandler in round two.
Really? And did
Yeah.
Michael Chandler consider retirement, or does he come back for one more fight, assuming he loses?
I think he may consider retirement, but he'll say the one fight I will come back for is Conor McGregor. Where the hell are you? Get your ass back to the octagon.
Yeah, he probably will. He probably will cut a promo, win or lose. That probably will. That probably will happen.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing is this segment is dragged on for now over a half an hour. I didn't think that we were gonna
Well,
go
no, no,
this
no.
long.
That's just the time between our two shorts.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. So you could actually just cut that part of it that I said that
For
because
full break, everybody.
no, for sure. But I guess the biggest loser in this situation to me is the fans, because if you would have told me that this fight was going to happen, meaning Oliver or Chandler at the beginning of the year, given what the UFC's current plans were, I don't know how that would have made any sense, because what I would have thought was that Oliveira would have rematched Islam by now. So
well, well, I mean, he technically was supposed to rematch with Islam. Then the cut happened at the end of last year, and so he got short notice replaced by Alex Volkanovski, and then they just never gave him the rematch, and then lost to Armin. Here's my question: you said the
okay.
biggest loser are the fans. Do you think the UFC is a big loser too, considering what they could have had pay per view wise, McGregor Chandler?
Oh yeah, but they weren't gonna do McGregor and Jones on the same pay-per-view,
Oh
though.
no, absolutely not. But obviously, plans for UFC 310 at this point are kind of out the window. And at this point, we have no idea if Conor McGregor's ever going to come back ever again.
Well, yeah, and plans are kind of out the window too, considering that if you look at all the divisions, there's not really any title fights that make sense to headline that card out of only maybe one or two. Because all the other title fights have happened or are going to happen in the next 2 months. So
Yeah, basically. All right, that's going to do it for this short. That's Zan. I'm Tom. See you next time.